In this video, we'll be creating the object that will emit the smoke particles for our train system. And then we'll set that up as an asset that we can drag in when we need it. Let's start by hitting A and then delete to delete all the objects out of our scene. Then Shift A, Mesh, Circle. Now our circle by default doesn't have a face. So we'll switch to edit mode by hitting Tab. Hit A to make sure everything is selected, F to make a face. Then switch back to object mode. Now we're going to add a particle system to this face. So if we look at the properties panel, you'll see the particle tab is this circle with 3 lines shooting out. And we'll click the plus to add a particle system. Now to see this in effect as we're making changes, we're going to hit play. And we can see that we have particles falling out from the face and gravity is pulling them straight down. Let's look at some numbers that we can change along the way. And when you're doing your train animation, you may have to adjust some of these, but we'll kind of go through and talk about them so you know what they are and where they're at. So we have a number of particles coming out. It's set by default to 1,000. That means from the time it starts to the time it ends, 1,000 particles will come out of the system. If we look next at frame start and frame end, that means we start with particles coming out at frame 1, and we stop having particles come out at frame 200. Let's change this to 250. So we have 250 frames for our particle system, and our animation also has 250, so it will stop at exactly the same time as the animation. Next, we have lifetime. That means each particle will stay on the screen for exactly 50 frames. So we can see that they fall and fall, and then at some point, they just start disappearing. If I change that number to something larger for, say, for example, 75, you'll see that once the animation catches up, they will fall past that and go farther because now they're staying on screen or they're being alive a longer period of time. Let's change this back to 50. And you'll notice they all stop at exactly the same point or they're all dying at exactly the same time. Excuse me. If we look at lifetime random, I think it's randomness. Yes. And we change that to 1, which is the full as high as you can go, we start having some that die a lot sooner. Die means they disappear, and some that last a little bit longer. So this gives us a bit more variety in how many particles are at different points in the simulation. Next, let's look at velocity. So we'll open up this section with velocity, and for the time being, we will close emission just so there are not as many numbers on the screen. Velocity controls how fast and the direction that they come out of this face. For what we're doing, we only want to look at the normal speed. And before we change any of this, let's do 2 other things since we're doing a smoke simulation. So we'll come back to velocity. Let's look at field weights. So we're going to open this, and we have gravity. So typically smoke rises because it's hotter than the air around it. So we're going to change gravity for this to a -1, and that will mean our smoke particles are floating up. Now, typically gravity doesn't turn off, but with particles we can't simulate heat and the difference between hot and cold air, so we'll have to kind of fake that aspect of what we're doing. Let's close field weights, and next let's look at physics. And we're only going to change one thing for right now, and then we'll come back to some of these numbers. So physics, for what it's calculating, it assumes that each particle is 1 kilogram. Obviously smoke isn't 1 kilogram, so we're going to make this a smaller number, for example, 0.01, so that way it acts a little more like smoke in the whole scheme of things. Now, with all of that done, let's go back to velocity. So we're only looking at the first number, the normal, and that's just how fast they come out of the object or the face. If we change this to a big number like 50, you're going to see they shoot out extremely fast. If you change it down to a really small number like 0.01, they come out slower, and gravity, or in this case, reverse gravity, is pulling them at a quicker speed. If we turn gravity off, then they would just barely come out and keep going at the same speed. So as we work on your smoke and you have it attached to your train, you may have to change this number depending on how fast you want the smoke coming out of the train smokestack. So let's close velocity, and let's go back down to physics. And we're going to look at the forces section, and we're looking at two numbers, the Brownian and the damp. We're not going to be using the drag number. So let's look at Brownian first, and you'll notice that they're all going pretty straight up. If I make this a really large number like 20, they all have random movement and go off in various directions. So we don't want anything that strong. So let's try 1. And if it were really windy outside, the smoke might swirl and go a lot of different directions. So let's try 0.1. And let's make it a little larger. Let's try 0.3, 0.2. What I'm trying to create is the effect that the smoke comes out, and as it goes up, it starts to dissipate and go in different directions because of turbulence and the heat and the hot air hitting the cold air and all of that. Next, we want to change the damp effect, because when this really hot smoke hits the cool air, it starts to cool and it starts to slow down. So let's make it 0.1 and kind of see what effect we have there. Now, because we're dampening the effect, they don't go as far before they die. So let's go back to emission. Let's change the lifetime to a larger number, for example, 100. Let it restart. Let's go 150 just for now so you can see this in effect, and we'll restart the calculation. Now that we have a bit more distance, we can go back down to physics and the damp effect, and let's change it to 0.2 and see what that looks like. And to see this more like the smoke effect, let's change the velocity. So you're seeing that already we have to play with these numbers to kind of tweak them to get the effect we want. So let's try 0.1. Let's try 0.5, and we'll restart the animation. Let's just try something bigger like 2, 10. Okay. Excuse me. So we're starting to get a little better effect that comes out really fast, and then it starts to slow down. I think I'm going to change the damp back down to 0.1. And we'll try it like that for right now, and we can always adjust it. Actually, no, I think I still like 0.2. So obviously you can play with these numbers to get an effect that you want. Okay, let's go ahead and stop this video. The bell's about to ring and I won't be able to finish recording the next section. So in the next video, we're going to talk about what objects are being emitted, because right now we just have these default what's called halos, and they don't show up when you render. So in the next video, we'll turn these into real objects that the camera can see.